to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Maybe it's time to down a bottle of Crown and be somebody's problem.
And Dale Hummel.
Thinking outside the box turns limits into possibilities.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, there's been a big event take place.
Yes.
Huge.
Large.
Biggest
Yep.
ever. It's not what you're thinking.
Oh, sorry.
The fact that the event was you listening to Joe Rogan's podcast.
Oh, yes.
First time ever?
No, you made me listen to the one that we can't talk about because then people will know you're crazy.
The UFOs?
No. The
Worse.
The fact that we didn't land on the moon. That one.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
No.
I still get some things popping up about that. I want to talk to you.
Listen to that one. So,
well, it took Trump and the moon landing to get Ryan to listen to a podcast, basically.
yeah, pretty much.
The podcast obviously garnered a lot of attention. Your summary of it?
A day later, it was at 28 million views. I don't need to listen to it because I am a Trumper. So I didn't need to listen to it. But I do think if you were on the fence or maybe you're not a big fan of his and you listen to it, then you saw what a different side maybe. I think when he does these podcasts, I think that he does come across way more personable, vulnerable even. He talked about mistakes he made in his first term in office. He talked, and when you sit there for 3 hours, or he's done a couple other ones that are over an hour, you can go more in depth in things. And so I do think it humanizes him more. And so I think that is good. I personally think, and I was talking to Clifton about this over the past week, I am not going to say who is going to win. I can look at the poll numbers and see that he's definitely up, and that I must have been in a Rona bubble during the last presidential election, because if you look at the Real Clear Politics numbers, I can vividly remember knowing exactly that Trump and Hillary were about 5 points apart going into the election. She was up. It was, close, but definitely favored her. I did not know, and again, I must have been in a bubble, that Biden was so far ahead. We're talking 9, 8 points ahead. In all the polls last time, I must have just been so convinced that he was going to win. I didn't pay attention to it. For the first time ever, Trump is leading in the national head-on-heads, one-to-ones, whatever you want to call it. He is ahead in all the swing states. The bet, I had a friend tell me the other day, well, the polls don't matter. The betting odds are what you need to look at. And I said, well, you don't need to look at that if you're for her, because the betting odds are overwhelmingly in Trump's favor. So I think all those things are good. I think he has, even though he's probably had less money this time than any other time, I think he's ran the best campaign that he's had. And granted, he's only ever had 3 in his life, but I think this has been the best one. But I'm cautiously optimistic next Tuesday will be good.
I agree with all of those things, Ryan, and I'm very hopeful, especially when he is up in every swing state on Real Clear Politics. It's not by much in some of them, but if you factor in,
but he's never been ahead before.
3 to 5, 3 to 5% basically under polling. He talked about it's going to be the biggest win in elections history, I believe, in his Madison Square Garden speech last night. And if he's under polling as much as he has in the last elections, that's possible. He could get a lot of electoral votes. So I hope not to be, I'm not trying to be over optimistic, and I'm
and
still
you
a
still
little
need to
cautious.
get your asses out and vote regardless. But
Oh,
if you haven't
absolutely. So there is my, traditionally speaking, the ground game on the Democrats get out to vote has always been better. That still concerns me. Their ability to give them a Happy Meal and put them on a bus and get them to a voting station is pretty good.
Yeah, lots of things concern me, but I do think it is better than it has been before. There's just no doubt that it's better than it has been before. And I think that's she's just a terrible candidate. And
She is not
she's
good.
just a terrible candidate. But as I was talking to Clifton, not only is she a terrible candidate, but she's making really bad decisions right here at the end. I don't know who is
out of desperation. It's the only explanation.
I mean, she's just making terrible decisions. And I don't know whose advice. I say this again, and I will say this for the rest of my life. I don't know how these people get paid millions of dollars to advise these people on who to pick as their VP, what to go, what to do. I'll do it for half and do better.
I don't think that Joe and the Chameleon, I just don't think they listen. That's the only explanation.
I mean,
advisors can't be that far off. They just can't.
She's just made some terrible decisions. But
wouldn't you assume it is absolutely desperation, and her internal polling has her so upside down they had to take the risk by putting her out there. There's no other logical explanation.
Yeah, but it's not working, and
no, it's. I think it's taken it worse.
Well, just like yesterday, so she made the mistake of telling two boys at a rally like last week or 2 weeks ago when they yelled out "Christ is Lord," that they were at the wrong rally and they needed to leave. So yesterday she goes to a church. And, everybody, her biggest problem, I mean, she's got a lot, but her biggest problem is she's not authentic. There's nothing authentic about her. And she comes up with all these different voices and accents. Well, yesterday she gets out there and she starts like channeling a pastor, how they talk and speak and all this other stuff. I mean, it's her latest accent. It's just, it's just bad. It's just really bad.
I completely missed that one. That would be entertaining.
I'll send it to you via Twitter.
I'm going to circle back just quickly on the Joe Rogan interview. I listened to probably 2/3 of it. I haven't listened to the end, and I have a couple questions about that. But I thought that Trump did a better job than usual keeping verbiage in check. It wasn't perfect, but it was still good. The fact that Joe validated a lot of the things that Trump has said, and he put it into perspective, I guess, and just by throwing it out there as a semi-independent person, I think it gave credit to a lot of things that Trump was saying. So I think that middle ground, if they listened, I believe it was a very big plus for the Trump camp.
And Joe Rogan has been negative on Trump. He's been positive on Trump. I mean, it is what it is. So he is very independent or free thinking, and he's not a Trumper and all this.
I'm going to assume he will vote for Trump this year, but I would not call him a Republican nor a Democrat nor liberal nor conservative. I think he has both in him, if that makes sense. He has issues that fall to both sides.
Right. And, so here's an example. She's over here coming up with trying to be a pastor in a church. She goes to Texas, which she can't win. And she tells everybody Beyonce is going to perform, and she doesn't. So 30,000 people walk out while she's talking. Trump has a rally in Madison Square Garden yesterday, It can fill about 25,000 people inside. And I realize that Trump exaggerates on his crowd sizes. I watched the whole thing. It was absolutely full. And the New York Police Department posted that there were 75,000 people outside. So that's 100,000 people that went to New York City yesterday on a Sunday. And this was like a 5-hour long rally. I mean, there was like 40 speakers. That she's making up preacher accents in church, and he's getting 100,000 people.
I'm shocked that many people showed up. I thought it was a great plan on Trump's camp. Excellent, actually.
And I'm
Ryan,
not.
are you?
I just want one other thing. Every campaign has stumbles and, bad moments. I think if Trump wins, that this campaign is going to look back kind of like Hillary did when she made the basket of deplorables comment. I think this trying to compare Trump to Hitler is going to be their downfall. And like MSNBC last night, while they were covering this rally at Madison Square Garden, the bottom of it talked about the Nazi rally that happened in Madison Square Garden all these other times, or this other time in 1930 something. I don't even remember when. I think that's going to be their fatal flaw. If they lose, that they're going to look back in time and say, okay, maybe we went too far when we decided that we were going to make him into Hitler.
I believe that gets their extreme base out to vote, maybe, which they're going to go anyway. But you are correct. That to me in no possible way appeals to those middle ground independents. It just doesn't. It's not going to work. And I think you throw that on the fact that she's finally doing interviews and people get to listen to her lack thereof intelligence. And the fact that she can't think on her feet, she can't answer a very simple question that's been asked numerous times. When people are aware of her lack thereof ability, it becomes very clear they can't vote for her. And then you throw Hitler and a few other things on there, and it's a train wreck. And that's good for the other camps, working out very well. We're recording for our listeners' sake on Monday morning. And Ryan, are you aware this is the last podcast? Or this is the final podcast that will drop prior to the election?
Yeah, very well aware.
It's very close. Very, very close to the election day.
Yeah, we're 8 days away.
I wish it was tomorrow. Things seem to be really going well at the moment. I think they'll continue to, but it cannot get here soon enough.
I think everybody's ready for it to be over. I think that's so. And which again, I have been for Trump for 12 years now, since he came down the escalator, whatever, in 15. But I do, and I want him to win, but and this is crazy when I say everybody wants to be. I look forward to see what happens next time. Who all is going to run? Who all, and who is he going to anoint? Win, lose, or draw? I do think that it will be just kind of a breath of fresh air to have a presidential election, which I think will probably be just as divisive as this one, but new main characters.
I think there'll be a lot of characters come out for the Republican primary. A lot. And I think it'll be good. There is one that's very likely to show up, Ryan. Your boyfriend.
Oh, God. Look,
you haven't mentioned the vice president.
I'm over all this JD Vance bullshit. Look, if they win, I'm just shut y'all all up. If Trump wins, then JD Vance has about 2 years to prove to me that he should be the next president of the United States before he starts running. I'm going to tell you now, I don't think it's going to happen, but I am going to give him a chance.
Because he's too well spoken or too intelligent. What was?
No, I don't think he's intelligent at all. Don't.
I am aware.
But I'm going to give him a chance. He's going to have 2 years to prove me wrong. And the one thing that Dale will say about me, and I'm not a perfect person, I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. So if I am wrong about J.D. Vance, I will admit it. But I don't think I am.
Even though it may be painful for you.
I admit when I'm wrong all the time, Dale. You
but
can never do
painful. It is painful.
JD,
so far, I have no issues with him being the vice president, capable of stepping up and running the country. There's nothing that tells me he cannot do it at this point. I am a fan at this point. Maybe there's something I'm missing. There is a little talk, and I know we're running a little bit long, about Joe Biden being snubbed and not asked to come out and campaign. Did you hear anything?
Oh, he went and did his own campaign event with it. Yeah, no. There was an article out yesterday or the day before that Camel Toast people keep pushing him off. So, and he will not be seen with her till the end of the election. So he just went out and had his own rally for her the other day.
Without discussing, you think a lot between the two?
Yeah.
I think there's that level of communication has been there from day one of his presidency. I don't think he and the Chameleon communicate.
Nope, she's the last one in the room.
That's what I hear.
Last one.
You do not believe that?
No, I don't believe any of it.
I don't think so either. At any level, I still believe that.
Go ahead. I'll finish that.
I believe that he threw his support behind the Chameleon as kind of a screw you, Democrat Party, for pushing me out.
Oh, I think he knew she was going to bomb. So yeah, he was like, okay, this is what y'all want to do, because he's the one. If you remember when he bowed out, everybody was talking about how we're going to have a abbreviated primary and there's going to be a process and all this stuff. And he just came out and said that she's the one. And it took about a week, but everybody finally had to get in line. Like Pelosi and Barack were the two holdouts.
There was no other path at that point. They were,
but Joe did that, and I think you're right. That was like, okay, y'all don't want me to do it. I'll show you how tough this is going to be. And
I believe he's that vindictive. I believe that to be absolutely
he's angry.
True.
Like there's too many people that have gone on record with names talking about how pissed off he's been for it not to have a lot of truth to it.
Yes,
but
nobody's talking about that.
Oh, when the Kennedy funeral, there was you could see in the exchange between him and Barack, it was bad, and they had a professional lip reader and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying it was right or whatever, but they're like, Biden, if you believe the lip reader, Biden was telling Barack, yeah, she's not going to win, and y'all should have stuck with me, basically. But I don't know,
and I don't believe he would be in. I don't know that it would make much of a difference either way. But he solidified the fact that she had to be the candidate, and if they could have went out there and handpicked who they wanted, which was their plan, somebody that was maybe polling really well, then I don't know. I think anyone they would have picked would have been a better candidate than the Chameleon.
No, that's why I said from the beginning, they're not going to, if they kick Joe out, they can't. How do you bypass the first female vice president who is also of ethnic origin? We're not sure what all.
They were getting ready to do it. I'm telling you.
I don't know they were going to but
and they were just going to blow past and hope nobody noticed.
Yeah, well, they would have, but worked out better for Trump, so I'm not against it. But
nope, I'm there. I'm completely there.
So we'll see.
Well, before we move on to the main topic, I would like to thank the many FFA advisors and students that stopped by the operation on their way to National Convention. Many were asking about you, Ryan, since you were here last year. That where's Ryan? Is he around the corner hiding somewhere? And I said, no. He's somewhere in Crockett, Texas, I believe. But I appreciate, at one time, I think we had 6 or 7 tour buses here at once. It was a little hectic, but really, really good. And I appreciate all the positive comments and want to congratulate those that competed at the National Convention, whether it's proficiency or in the mini contest. We had a chance to supply a class for the National FFA Livestock. I thought that event, just looking in from the outside, went extremely well. I appreciate being involved in that and presenting at the Coaches Clinic. So thank you to all of those FFA convention-related events that we had.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you have BTR-JLA top 10?
Top 10 all around. First place, Macy Zerbach, Oregon. Second place, Reagan Arney of Indiana. Third place, Hannah Early, Indiana. Fourth place, Travis Arney, Indiana. Fifth place, Zane Downey, Montana. Next is Lexi Amunden of Washington, followed by Sailor McCoy of Oregon, Chandler Fender of Nevada, Callie Simpson of Arizona, and Piper Raymer of Washington.
That's the strongest showing I think we've had from Indiana. Impressive. Many recognizable names that you've listed before hitting your top 10 overall. I would like to remind our listeners about our sponsor, ShowFresh H2O. Look at ShowFresh H2O as an insurance policy that is low cost with huge returns when needed. Leaving the show box year-round, no issues freezing, and it's available when you need to use it. Some animals will not drink chlorinated city water. Remove the taste of the chlorine, and they're more likely to consume the water, consequently more hydrated. You can purchase ShowFresh H2O at your local farm store, Show Supply Trailer, or at swampfox.com. Ryan, it is time for the main topic, and I have many things that stress me out. I don't know if you're aware of that. So this one's probably more impacts me more than a lot of exhibitors, but I'm sure there's some that are in my shoes. And the topic name is National and Major Show Pressure Points. And what I'm trying to get at, here are the things that when my family or myself, I probably should single myself out because some of my family members do not stress as bad as I do. When we prepare to go to a show or take off to go to a show and everything involved in it, what things really get to me, tighten my chest? What are the difficult times to get through? And I think a lot of these cannot be alleviated. It's just part of the process, but it's interesting at different shows how different staff and the show itself handles these particular things. And I'm going to use the Texas Majors, Ryan, at the very, very beginning, where it's just normal. And I'm going to refer to pretty much the sheep, goat, and probably pig arena, where I haven't had as much time on the cattle side or paid as much attention or there at the right time. It's just normal. And I'm going to throw this out there in the very beginning, and I know we've kind of hit on it here and there. It's normal for if you are taking a goat to Houston, let's use that for an example. You have a pen that you may or may not have to share with somebody else. The only place that you have to put your tack box and feed and supplies is in that pen, or have some type of device that attaches to the pen, and you can put the stuff above your pen. And maybe, and Ryan can address this better, somewhere off in a distance, there may be a place for you to put some chairs or something up, but not probably anywhere near your pens. That is just normal, is it not, Ryan? It has been that way for as long as you can remember. Back in Astrodome days, was it that crowded?
Well, I mean, it depends, because at one time we had sifts for the small animals, like in Rosenberg and Brenham and stuff like that. And so, depending on that, but ever since we've got to the NRG of it all, it's just been that way. But I don't know, all major shows are crowded at Texas, so we're just kind of used to it.
Yeah, that's just how it is, and I think people are used to it. So I'm gonna go back to the National Major Show Pressure Points. If I'm getting ready, and I don't care which show we use, and I'm not sitting in line at Houston or San Antonio. We're there and helping families, but I don't get to experience the full thing. But if we stop and say, okay, I'm going to Kansas City or I'm going to Louisville, Denver, Arizona, whatever show it may be, there are several things that get on me. And the first one, and I shouldn't stress about this at all, I do so because I tend to get distracted. I'm not maybe as organized as I should be. And this was a hot topic here recently, especially with Denver. But the DNA deadlines / entry deadlines, that just making sure we get those things done is a slight stressor for me, Ryan. It should not be, correct?
No, it should not.
It should be a date in my date book and you're done. What about the fact that the DNA deadline and the entry deadline are different dates? What if we put them on the same date? Just entered when you sent the DNA in.
We talked about this with the Denver thing. I don't think there's any reason for them to have different dates. I understand that some shows do, but I think it would be much easier if you could have it on the same date. Now, at the same time, I get why they have different dates, because if you order your DNA kit close to the date that you have to send it in, you're probably not going to get it done. But I think it would be more clear to exhibitors if the date was the same, that this is the date that you have to have it in, and you can order kits up until this date.
So you think basically how Denver has it structured, where it was October 1st deadline to order your DNA kits, and then I believe November 1st to send your DNA in, and I believe entry as well. So I mean that I'm with you. That was posted. That's very clear, and that seems logical. Maybe when we talked about this before, there's more time between the ordering of the DNA and when it's due than maybe necessary. But as long as it's announced, very clear, all those things, I get it. So when I'm going to back up, let's say we get ourselves entered, everything's going down the right path. The next debate that my family has, some shows allow you to drop off. There may be a 2-day staging to get in that you can show up on the first day or the second day. As long as you're there by a certain time in the second day, everything's fine. Some people choose to go in very early. Some want to try to get in right at the very, very end. My dilemma there becomes, I want to get there early enough that I can get tax space and electrical outlets, all of those things, and get situated, let the animals get comfortable and hopefully adjust to that environment. But at the same time, if I'm trying to be one of the first ones in, I have to leave and get into what we call staging line very, very early to be one of those first ones in. The downside of that is those animals are on the trailer for a longer period than what I feel comfortable. And Ryan, your Texas majors probably are the biggest
I don't want to
example
hear,
of this.
and I am not trying to be disrespectful to you Yankee people, but I don't want any of y'all to talk to me about lines at shows. Okay.
How long a line for staging it at a major?
Oh, and over the years, we have been the very first. We have come in right at the end. We have done all of these things, trying to figure out what is the best time, whatever. We have tried every combination of nonsense that you can think of. And I'm just telling you, you're going to be in line at a Texas major show, at least with cattle. I'm talking from cattle perspective, but I think it's pretty much universal. At least 12 hours.
Sitting in line at near the fairgrounds. And I would agree with that. And guess what? Those that are trying to be first or second in line, how long do you think they're there?
Well, we've been that person.
I'm going to say a full day in advance.
Yeah, no, 24. We've been that person. And my whole thing of it is, and like I said, we've tried every combination. We've tried at every show, all this other stuff. Some shows you can take tack in separately. We've tried it all. It has been my opinion, and not everybody agrees with this, but because, like you said, it's probably different now that we have broken it up in waves after Rona. It's probably a little better, but back when everybody went in at once, the thing is like, I just assume be there because you're going to get them off the trailer and have more time at the actual show to make them comfortable, rest them, exercise them, get them full, all this other stuff. So I after trying every combination in the world, I was like, let's just go early and get there and get them unloaded. That was my final endpoint on it. But
Ryan, I stress over that decision. And you obviously went every direction trying to figure out what the best is, and you don't have an absolute answer now. But
not a Texas major show. So there is no good answer. There is none.
And we talk about waiting in line at Louisville or Kansas City for a few hours, and that being a complaint of many.
Yeah,
and
that's
the stress.
I don't want to listen to you Yankees. Don't talk to me.
It is still stressful for me because I am trying to micromanage and worry about everything possible that may impact the animal in a negative manner. And that being on the trailer that long on some animals is tough on them. Others, they're fine, especially if they've been on the road a lot previously. But that concerns me. And I know that there's always that discussion when I'm talking with other families that are going, what time are you leaving? When are you leaving? And I'm going to say, Ryan, a lot of them right now, it's either we're leaving way early to be one of the first ones, or like what you said, we're going to come in right below the buzzer on our deadline and try not to spend as much time in the trailer. But because so many people are doing that, you show up and you still have a line. It just isn't going to matter as much. Some shows, the Texas majors, I believe, Ryan, are one of them that now implement. You can buy the early staging or early get in line. Fast Pass. There we go. The Disneyland Fast Pass. You can do the same at Arizona National. I think that's become. I believe people appreciate it. I think those that take advantage of it like it. I'm assuming those that do not would prefer it didn't happen. And they can be expensive. Sometimes they auction them off or it's a set price, but I know they're not cheap at times. I don't have any idea what the Texas major ones are, but probably high. If you have an FFA chapter where several families can chip in on it, no big deal. But if you're hauling on your own, probably expensive. With that, the next one that I have in mind, and this all revolves around when we leave to go to the show and factors into it. We talked about the Texas majors. You get a pin. You're not allowed on the sheep and goat side. You're not allowed trimming stands. You're not allowed any space for tack, any of those things whatsoever. So with that being said, at the national shows in general, if you're showing lambs or goats, we'll look at primarily, or I will talk from that experience. You're going to get in there and try to set up 2 or 3 trimming stands, depending on how many animals you brought. And more importantly, and I can think of the American Royal being one of these, there's only outlets in certain parts of the barn, and certain rows don't have outlets. You have to run extension cords. It's just a challenge. And I think the older facilities, which most of them are, have these same challenges. Fortunately, many of these national shows are building new facilities, and I am confident they're going to have more electrical access. But the fact that you're going to a show, and if you're not there early enough, you show up and there is absolutely zero space. There's nowhere to put a trimming stand. There's no plugins left that are accessible to plug into for blowing your stock or clipping or whatever it may be. This is a problem. You can't bring a generator inside, so that's not a solution. And those things really weigh on me and change the attitude on when are we going to leave and when are we going to be there, for that simple reason. Some shows, you can go in ahead of time and try to reserve that tack space by spreading things out, using caution tape, whatever you may be. And those that camp up, and specifically I'd say on the lamb side, and there's several larger lamb camps we'd refer to, we'll try to go in and really basically take up whatever space they feel is needed. The problem is those families that are coming in later that may not be camped up, there just is no room left. And that is a problem. I don't have an absolute fix for it. I can tell you that you can use Texas Majors as an example, and nobody gets any space, but you can't use a blower. You can't use plug-in clippers. You can't have a stand. So it doesn't matter as much, I guess, there anyway. But when you're allowed to use a blower, when you're allowed to use a stand, when you're full fitting, all of those things, you need a place to be able to do that. You need an electrical source, all those things. And if you don't have it, you're in trouble. And it's there's no question, nearly every family that comes into a show, if you're not one of the very first ones, you are stressed about it. I stress immensely about it. When we get to a show, the first thing that we're going to do before we unload anything is take extension cords in and try to get those plugins solidified so we have power. Next, try to find some tack space and pins and so forth. But right there, that if I'm going to identify one pressure point or stressor for me, it is that time frame that we're waiting in line or we're trying to get in time to get all of that taken care of. I know this may sound crazy to some, but it absolutely wears on me, and I can assure you that's a question that I get when I'm at the shows. How can we fix that? I don't know without building a new facility that it can be fixed. I know Arizona National's working with an older facility and they've kind of outgrown themselves. One thing that they did, they assigned tack space that you can purchase up front. I believe it's a 10 by 10 space that you can buy that tack space so you don't have to worry about when you're going to get there. That tack space is yours. It's assigned to you. You have plugins. You have place for your stands. I don't like spending money on anything, but if I'm going to spend money on something, that money I spend to get that tack space relieves a lot of stress about me worrying about what happens if we don't have a plug-in. What are we going to do? How are we going to fit in with somebody else? How are we going to do what we need to try to give ourselves a chance to succeed? So I'm in favor of that. And I, again, do not like spending money by any means to get those things done. Ryan, I don't remember, you talked about it at the Texas Majors. Some of them let you use blowers, fitting chutes, etc. The other issue that I know, I can remember it from Illinois State Fair and one of the other majors, maybe Louisville. When we get a couple double blowers going and we have a couple families on the same circuit and it blows that circuit, you can't simply go to the breaker box and flip the switch. You have to call the main office at the show. They have to bring a union electrician out to flip a breaker, and it may be an hour later, and you're trying to fit and get ready for that show. Do you think that I have issues at that point?
Oh, I'm sure that you have many issues, but that being one of them.
Those things don't stress you out?
I don't know. I think, yeah, it's stressful. I go back to this. Look, I've been doing this my whole life. There's nothing that could happen at a show that hasn't happened to us at some point. So I've been down on it. You got to find a way to persevere. And I agree with you. I want to say before I say this, I agree with a lot of your points. I think that, all of this is stressful. I'm not saying that. And I'm not also going to say that, offering the thing of buying fitting space, buying whatever, all this, the fast passes, all this other stuff. That's fine. That's good. Okay. Would we do it? Yes, of course we would. Not everybody has that exposable income.
No, I mean, not, and it's becoming more expensive each year.
Yeah. So my thing, I guess my point in this is I'm not bitching about any show. My point is to those shows, big shows that are building new facilities and the ones in the future that are going to renovate their facilities or build a new one, whatever. I don't understand how you've had these shows for all these years. You know the problems with your show. You know the problems with space. You know the problems with electricity. You know all this. And yet you build a brand new facility and you don't fix it. That is what stresses me out.
I think it is absolutely amazing when some of the design of these facilities is being worked up. You wonder, do they bring anybody in that's actually shown at that show previously or at another show. Ryan, I know you don't want to pick on Houston, but you have mentioned to me there were issues there.
I don't want to pick on Houston because it's one of my favorite shows. They forgot wash racks.
I didn't know if you were willing to say it or not.
And you know, but let's that happened. I don't understand how this. Well, and just like Denver spent all this millions of dollars on a new facility, and I know it's not completely fixed yet, but it's got to be close. You can't even get a display bowl in there.
The deadline isn't until November 1, but sold out on display bowls. What is
how is this possible?
What do people think about when they think about Denver? What do you think about?
The display
that is one of my main. Yeah, that's one of my highlights. Period.
That's what you think about. I mean, it used to be the yards. The yards aren't there anymore. The display bowls. That's what you think about. I don't know if they have more or less display pin area, but if you're running out of space, gosh dang, that's a huge part of it. That I would have done whatever I can to try to expand that or accommodate in some manner, because that's a focal point. That's huge. I'm going to be very positive and say that the new facility at Kansas City is going to be perfect. The one that they're fixing to build in Louisville is going to be perfect. It probably won't be, but I'm going to try to stay positive. But what my big deal on all of this is, we're talking about things that stress you out. I don't understand why shows don't put more effort in, not even just when they're building a new facility, but into trying to make this less of a problem. And you know, you talked about Arizona National and what they've done, and they don't own their facility, and it's an older facility and all this other stuff. I get that. The reason Arizona can't grow is there's no more room for it to grow. And they're not coming up with a solution on how to fix it. That stresses me out. And I don't get it. I don't. But and I'm going to assume that these new facilities that are being built right now, I'm making a plea right now, please go through, double check, triple check that these things make sense. That why on earth would we not build at least a little bigger and make these things as convenient? And there's some of these things that stress me out, or what we call pressure points, that there is no fixing. I get it. But let's do what we can. And those of you that have the fortune to be building a new facility, some forethought and digging very deep, I think is a something I want to encourage. I know the plans were done probably years ago, but if there's any way to make adaptations to accommodate some of this, please do so. I saw the picture of the new Royal facility. I believe, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, that they have the buildings up and the shell complete to a certain degree. So that is happening. They talked about maybe being in it next year, but for sure the following year. I think we're in the same position with the junior market facility at Denver. Ryan, maybe I'm wrong. Were we going to be in that? I don't know that we're even going to be in it this year. I was hopeful that they were going to be able to, but I'm not sure where that is. And you know more about Louisville. They're tearing down Broadbent and a few other buildings to build new. All I know is they announced during the Kentucky State Fair that they're building new facilities in Louisville, which I think Louisville is actually the best facility there is already. And that's not just being biased, because I love Louisville. You don't have these problems at Louisville, at least not in the cattle barn. No, the cattle barn's great. The sheep, goat, and hog barn, I guess we'll call it, and we rotate some of the same space for those three animals or species. Everything's good. Could always use more electrical outlets. They all come out of the floor and hard to find sometimes. The biggest problem there is, Ryan, on our small animal side, there are no wash racks. Yeah. You go out on the loading ramp and construct something that looks like a wash rack that floods, and it's a mess. Outside of the wash rack issue, no question, Louisville's really, really good. We did make a plea for the show ring at Louisville. This stressed me out last couple of years, that by the time we get to the goats, after the sheep have been through that ring, the tar paper all starts to peel up and the ring gets pretty rough. It's like
in
a
terms of
minefield.
just I think the judge even walking around without falling down is an accomplishment. I think the solution is let's put some more shavings in there to make sure we don't get down to that tar paper and it rips up. So there's all kinds
Just
of
replace the
those
tar
things.
paper after the sheep show.
Yes, that would be fantastic. Another one, and I think of a couple shows, and I'm not trying to pick on any. Parking is always an issue, and I can pick on the Texas majors. They're a little further away. But Ryan, I think about show day at San Antonio. I mean, it may be backed up a mile plus to get into the parking lot.
Oh yeah,
all of them.
That's what I guess I get your point on this and all. And I mean, you're not the only one. Like all my friends that go to Louisville, Denver, Kansas City, Arizona, they all gripe about this stuff, and I get it. Y'all don't know what the hell we deal with here in Texas. Y'all have no clue because the other ones are like a cakewalk for us.
I think that Texas is the worst. I think it's strictly related. And I don't have a fix. There's no way they can buy more ground or build a monster parking garage. And I'm with you. It just is what it is, and you deal with it. But man, does it! Even when I'm going to those majors to help families, just it tightens my chest. It's a challenge for me.
Oh no!
But I'm not pointing fingers at the show because they're just trying to accommodate that many people.
Yeah, and you can do this, and you can buy this, and all this other stuff. I'm gonna. You want to talk about stress out and all this other stuff. Love them, loathe them, whatever. Cattlemen's Congress in Oklahoma City, there is no stress about any of that bullshit. You don't have to buy anything. Nobody's yelling at you where to park. You just
parking. You have more than enough parking.
I mean, it just is what it is.
No passes, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, passes. No. That's from a convenience and expense standpoint. And I haven't even got to this. When you start realizing what you're paying for hotels in Denver, San Antonio, I mean, most of the cities, insane. We tend to go the Airbnb route if we think of it ahead of time. But it's major. You're right. I think Oklahoma City has that lower cost, user friendly, no parking issues. It's pretty simple in and out.
My thing is, and this goes back to things that stress you out. Okay, so I'm just gonna hypothetical, and this has happened to me at every Texas major show. I will say it's 6 a.m. in the morning or earlier, and you're going to the show, and you forget your pass in your truck or in the other coat or whatever. Now, sometimes people have been nice and let me in. Other times, not so much. Now, common sense.
They were unaware. They clearly didn't know who you were.
Common sense should tell the people at the gate, if you're trying to get into the show before 6 a.m. in the morning, you're not a fair goer that didn't buy a pass. Okay? Like that. Nobody goes out there at that time. So why would show management who pays these people to get, hey, look, before 6 a.m., y'all don't worry about who's got a pass or who doesn't. Those people are here. They bought one. They may have forgot. Like, why couldn't you do something simple like that? But they don't.
You would assume, wouldn't you?
You would think.
So I can think of the majors specifically because of the passes that are needed. But do they not, and maybe you addressed this earlier, I'm going to say I don't know what time it is, but for the most part, you can walk in without anything when it's all exhibitors at 6 a.m. until 7, or they all have their own timeline that they start checking passes. And that just makes sense, doesn't it? I don't even think we have to go through
Texas majors check passes around the clock.
No, see, at Houston, and I don't know about San Antonio. I know at Houston, if we're there before probably 7 a.m., they're letting you just walk through. No, nobody's bothering you. On the sheep and goat, I don't even know what call it, the entrance off the tram.
Okay, I don't know about the
don't
entrance
even have
off
to go
the
through the
tram.
middle section.
I don't know about the entrance off the tram. The main gate entrance by the cattle barn, you're lying, sir. absolutely lie. You would be
24/7.
wrong. Yeah, you would be wrong.
Yeah, the other ones, they're good about it. I think even coming in off of the parking lot at San Antonio real early, they're okay. And it makes sense. There's nobody that's not an exhibitor coming in that early anyway. So it's logical and appreciated. I also, and you've talked about this a little bit, and we both talked about this, Ryan, that whole concept in deciding when are we going to get that animal up and get that animal ready. I'm going to use, just because it was the most recent show, the American Royal on the goat show side of it, trying to figure out, okay, we've got a 2-judge system. We've shown, or I've been shown and have watched Brandon Callis judge quite a bit, and he usually moves through them at a fairly consistent pace and is predictable enough on time. When you put a 2-judge system in, sometimes it's going to go really well. Other times it's going to slow itself up quite a bit. And I'm not sure why, but this year at Kansas City, it did slow things down to where, wow, if you weren't in one of those later classes, let's say you were in class 3 and you started getting that animal washed and prepped before they even started, that one was going to be on the stand a while, because it was taking a long time. And the only way I can tell you to try to calculate that is, hopefully you're in a class later in the day and you just time some of those classes. Ryan, you've talked about how many seconds per animal or minutes per animal. I don't remember those numbers, which that may work fine, but I think it really depends on how they're getting those things in and out of that ring at a given show. But most of the time, if we have 20 in a class, Ryan, how long is that going to take you?
You don't use me as an example, because
How long is it going to take the average person to sort those? I'm going to say 20 minutes.
Nah, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Most people's average is over a minute per animal. And so,
okay, that's where I wasn't aware of what that was.
Most people's average is over a minute an animal. And when I time these things, I want you to understand my process. It's from the time the first animal walks in to the last animal walks out. So that includes reasons and the whole 9 yards of it all, but most judges are
Susie's goat getting loose and a few other things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's not a perfect system, because, like I said, there may be 5 classes that nobody gets loose, and then there may be one class where 15 of them get loose, but it all averages out in the end. But most people are well over a minute. And so, but.
And you can follow some judges that will get you pretty close. If you know what their time is per animal, that gets you close. Now, somewhere like San Antonio or Houston, where they're bringing a whole bunch in and dismissing 90% of them or whatever it may be, that's going to be a little different, obviously.
Well, and
because they're able to.
You talk about people normally consistent on time. I think that's probably right. But then there are things that happen at shows that make each judge maybe not be as consistent before. So I just time them on that day. Even if I know they're fast or they're slow, I time them on that day. I'm like, okay, today's a new day. We're going to see how XYZ moves and does. But I don't know how. I mean, you said it slowed up because of the 2-judge system. I think anytime you add judges, it's going to slow up, but especially on market animals, when you're having to feel them, that's kind of a given. It takes 2 people longer to feel animals than it does one. And then
I think
when you go back and maybe they refill the top 10 or the top 5 or whatever, that's going to be a part of it, but not saying you shouldn't.
I think on the handle side, I believe they were starting at opposite ends. I'm sure it adds time. I think just that if there's just discussion, you can stand out there by yourself and run through some things in your head, but it's going to take longer to discuss with that other person, run through it in a logical manner and make those decisions. So yeah, it's definitely going that direction. You've talked about this before. I worry at night, whether it's a fairgoer coming through to feed it something that they don't think is harmful, to somebody that's probably a little intoxicated doing something stupid, all of the above. And you, I believe, at the majors talk about how you just stayed out there with them to try to prevent, at least until At the majors, when the rodeo cuts loose, that's
no, it's
problem
24
area,
hours. Somebody is with ours 24 hours. Somebody. And
because
I don't trust anyone
for the reason of
all of the above. I don't
not
trust
just fairgoers, other exhibitors, all the above.
I don't trust anyone. Nobody.
So
y'all can all be equally offended. I don't trust none of you bitches. Nobody.
I have issues with those animals getting screwed with at night, whether it's a fairgoer, a drunk, whatever it may be. It does help me if I'm going to be gone, and more times than not, we're usually spending the night. But my solution. You became addicted to it a couple of years ago, I believe, when we had them.
Yeah, but I think the camera system is good. Don't get me wrong. And for the places that I think that's good. Also, but when you're watching on a camera, if somebody does it, you're not going to get out there in time to.
No, but I think. I don't know. I know I can hear what's going on. I don't know if I can communicate through the camera and tell them to get away from the animal. I don't think so. You would have done that, I believe, if that was the case. And we have it recorded.
I would have scared the hell out of
you're right.
People at Exarban a couple of years ago if I could have talked through your cameras. I mean, I would have scared the hell out of people. But no.
Yeah, you're right. We can watch it happen if we're not right there, which we have evidence of. Here's what went on, but we can't. You're right. It doesn't stop it.
It doesn't prevent it. It doesn't stop it. And yes. I'm telling you, if I was completely in charge of whatever, not only would I not leave one in. I mean, we would take shifts. We would hire college kids, the whole 9 yards. But somebody was with our set of animals 24/7, and that still is. I would have cameras too now. Even though somebody was there, I just
in
would.
addition to,
yes, because I would, and I am paranoid about this. I like I said, I don't trust any of you bitches. I am paranoid about it. That's how I am. But I would have both. That would be me.
I not only stress about it, just something being fed to them that shouldn't be, but I get stressed that just too much commotion and activity right near that pen is not allowing them to sleep and rest and not going to look as good the next day because of such. So I worry about too many things. Way too many.
You need to take me to the show with you at every show because like you try to be nice to people. I do not. Like I cannot tell you the number of times I have yelled at people in our own group because I do not understand. This is, you want to talk about things that stress me out. We spend all this money. We do this. We get here early. We line up. This is the moment. Okay. This is the main show. Okay. And yet people in my own group will stand 5 feet from their animal having a conversation with somebody that came down the aisle that they haven't seen in 2 weeks, whatever, or since the last major. Get your asses out of the beds.
I'm going to make the plea right now. Don't move. You're right. And
you won't say shit. I can remember at Louisville last year, I screamed at somebody.
I have.
I can remember at the Louisville
away from the pen
last year, I screamed at somebody for you. I don't remember who it was, but no.
I have mentioned that we need to move along if at all possible. I try to do it politely, but I'm
not polite. Not.
Especially that first 12 hours or so when we get there and those animals want to lay down and rest. I love kids having fun at shows, but if we're trying to play football in front of the pins or something.
Do it outside. No, you don't even get to have fun inside.
Back a little.
You do not get to have fun inside.
No.
You take your ass outside. People don't. I am a proponent of giving a child a cell phone when it comes out of the womb because of that right there. Because if they have a cell phone, they will not be worried about playing football. They will be doing some nonsense, sitting right there in the chair where they need to be.
Oh my!
Again,
my chest is getting tight
reason
just
why
about this.
I did not have my own children because I have a different parenting philosophy than all of you people.
And then let's be thankful.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very thankful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Ryan, for putting up with my venting on things that stress me out. And shows don't show.
You're missing.
You have some. You have some.
Yeah.
Well, please do. I was trying to
No, you're missing a couple of the big ones. So I think at almost every major show now, we have some sort of try to be exhibitor friendly where you turn in your weights or whatever, all this other stuff. So one of the things that people stress out, and I don't understand this on the breeding side. I completely understand it on the market side, because if you go to one of these major shows and you have a breeding animal that has a birth date, you should know what class you're going to be in. Okay? You should. It's printed in the little book. Now, maybe you stress out over who else is going to be in your class and you want to know those things. I get it. Market and
change it.
No, you can't, but people still stress. I'm trying to give credence to this, okay?
Got it.
People stress over weight breaks at market shows.
Something terrible.
This is all done by computer. Now, whatever. Get those weight breaks out. Get those class sheets out as soon as possible, because people stress over that as much as anything, especially at a market show. And even if it's just, here are the weight breaks, maybe not the list, people still want to know who they're showing against, even though they, like you said, you can't fix it, but they still want to know who they're showing against. It is better to put the weight breaks out as early as possible, so people at least are not stressed about that. Well, I know that my weight break in Southdown sheep, I'm at 92 pounds, and here's where I am. And
yes, and I did miss this one totally. And not only that, Ryan, but writing down on the market shows when you have a 5% or 5 pound or whatever the way back requirements are, determining what the weight of that animal is becomes very stressful. And you're trying to miss maybe another one of your animals to get in a different class so you can have your showman on both animals. You're trying to miss Susie that you know has a good one. You're hoping that you don't look too small in class. Everything comes into play. And sometimes on those days that we have to turn weight cards in, the lines to weigh get crazy. And on occasion, you'll hear if there's 2 or 3 different scales out there that one of them's weighing heavy, one of them's weighing light. Show management, make sure you have enough test scales, that there isn't an hour wait to get on those scales. Make sure that those scales are consistent as best you can. And I know these things are not always easy to do, but that, Brian, you're right. That may be at that point for the junior market exhibitors. If you have to turn in those weight cards at 6 p.m., that timeline between whatever, when you're trying to figure out what it is until you turn it in, is challenging. You want to know something crazy. You're talking about the birth date on those breeding animals. You could basically turn it in whenever or check in whenever. I am always too close to that deadline when I turn the weights in every single show. And I shouldn't be. There's no reason to wait to the last minute.
No, I understand, and like I think that was going to be my second point. I have 3 of these, but my second point was like on market stuff when there are waybacks, all this other stuff. So you bring that up, and I get there's 900 different things that go into writing down this weight. I want to say, just as personal advice, I think that you have to turn in your weight where your animal is going to look its best, regardless of who's in that class, regardless of what the weight breaks were the year before. Take all that information into consideration, okay? I'm not saying discard it. In the end, I would encourage you to still turn in your weight at what makes that animal look best. I think you will be better off in the end. But that is stressful as anything in the junior market shows when you can turn in your weight.
I think that advice is as good as you've ever given, Ryan, and I don't know that it's adhered to.
No, it's
but
not.
If you have to restrict,
do you know how many parents I had to beat their head against those?
The water. If we can't fill them and hydrate them to where they look the best because we're restricted by the weight we turned in, you've just stabbed yourself right in the gut. Period. You're at a disadvantage.
And like I said, I'm not saying take all the information that you can into consideration. And there's a plethora of it. Susie, who won 15 shows, what the weight breaks were the year before and the year before that. I mean, in Texas, we have a book that is printed each year that gives you the weight breaks for at least the last 5 years. And so take all that information into consideration. There are some judges, 9 times out of 10, they're going to use heavyweight. I get it. I understand all the information. And I will still tell you the best advice I can give you on this is turn in your animal where it's going to look the best.
I agree completely. And that is one of the largest mistakes that I see made at shows.
And then
I think even, and I don't even know if I want to throw this out there, but to be as transparent as I can, as a breeder, exhibitor, judge, whatever perspective you want to look at it, I almost think there's an advantage for you to not look like you're that really big one out there that pulled the weight really hard, but rather coming in looking fresh and appropriate at that weight level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially when you're in market shows where it's done by weight, very few times do the outliers, the smallest one in the class or the biggest one in the class, is that helpful. I don't think that's an advantage. Very, very few times. Very few times. But the only other one that I have to bring up about things it shows, and I'm going to go just a little crazy here, and that's okay, because I am crazy. So I think in breeding animals, it's probably not so bad, because I think the majority of breeding animals, they line them up by age and send them in the ring by age, and that's fine. In the market shows, they don't do that by weight. I sometimes wish they would. I really do. I wish
just
because it
would be easier.
Like,
so Ryan,
and that way the judge knows that way the judge knows, okay, this is the lightest one and that's the heaviest one, and here they all are. And granted, these breaks aren't very much in most classes or anything like that, but this trying to figure out who's going to go first, who's going to go in the middle, who's going to go at the last, all this other, you want to talk about what stresses me out? That stresses me out. And Texas majors have taken steps which they think is great, and I'm not going to pick on anybody in particular, but I'm going to pick on them all. They have taken steps, at least in the cattle. I don't know about sheep, goats, whatever, but where you can't decide because they're going to bring you all in the holding ring, and then every class they're going to start at a we may start in the middle of the class here. We may start at the first class next one. We the end, 3/4, whatever.
But it has been designated.
Wears me out. And also, I want to say they do this. They do this with the premise of this being fair, because that way nobody knows and everybody just goes up there and it's different every class and all this other stuff. I hate to break it to you people. It's not fair. It's not, because the person deciding, most times somebody can put something in there. Oh, we'd like to be in the middle, or we'd like to be at the front, or we'd like to be here. A lot of times it's interns that pick. I'm just telling you, it's not fair.
That can be influenced.
Yes, it can be. And I'm calling you all out on it. I don't care. So,
well, Ryan, this is real, and you're going to share one of your stories, but I don't care what show I go to. And I think there is maybe an occasional national show that will go by weight or exhibitor number, or I'm not sure what.
Weight or exhibitor, I don't care. Just something. Take
something that's non-biased, non-subjective. Just here it is.
It is what it is.
You get unlucky, away you go. I'm telling you, in that goat show, most of the time, that goat that's got to lead off, that's not going to go well. I mean, and some goats are fine. The old breeding does are fine, but I think as a judge, you almost have to take that into consideration a little bit. That poor kid that was forced to come in first, or you'll get in a goat ring. Let's use Kansas City for an example. And I mean, you've got kind of two parts of the ring, the one up by the gate to go in, and then the other back holding area for kind of overflow. There's nobody leaving that area. Nobody's going anywhere near the gate because they don't want to have to gesture to go in first. And then the person that's letting them in the ring is screaming at anybody to please come up here and go. And it's usually that poor little child that doesn't want to offend anybody that steps up and gets thrown to the wolves by going first. It's stressful. And I promise you, I remind our showmen, I remind my children, I said, I don't care where you go, but you better not be in those first couple. Let's get back further. And Ryan, you'll testify to this. There are some judges when we're at a large show that they're pulling and they're going to keep X amount out and dismiss the rest. I can't explain why. Some will pull more from the beginning. Some will pull more from the end, but there sometimes is a pattern.
There
when
is
we
a
see
pattern.
it.
There is. There's
People are all jumping on the bandwagon to get either in the beginning or the end. Have you ever tried to be the last one in the ring, Ryan? Ever?
No, yeah. Okay.
When you were showing?
Yes.
How'd that work out?
I told him I was going to.
Were you last every time you wanted to be?
Yeah, because I was mean. I'm still mean. Y'all think I'm nice. I'm not. I'm mean. No. Yeah. No. I can remember one year at Fort Worth. For some reason, the last one that got pulled ended up high up at class every single time. And by the time we got to the heat class, everybody had figured this out over 2 days. And I was told that if I wasn't the last one in the ring, I would be dead. They would kill me. And so I made that very clear to about 5 other people that I was like, we can all miss this class together, or one of y'all can get hurt, but I'm going in last. And I went in last. I'm not a nice person. No.
I would never accuse you of being a nice person. Don't you worry. I'm okay with that.
Y'all think that if y'all think that I am a bitch now, y'all should have seen me when I showed, because I was vicious. I'm just telling you. Absolutely. I was not Miss Congeniality. Ever. Never. But yeah.
Do you have any other pressure point?
No, I to sum that part of it up, I think exhibitor numbers are good idea too, or wait, but take all the other things out of it, send them in there in that way. And if you have to go in first, you have to go in last. It is what it is. But there is no outside influences. There is no nothing. This is how it happened. You were the smallest one in terms of weight, so you go in first. You were the heaviest one, you go in last. Your exhibitor numbers, the lowest, the highest, I don't care. But I do think...
just be consistent, whatever it is.
Right. Take out all the bullshit of all this other stuff.
And Ryan, you can remember judging shows where you're sitting there at the gate waiting for them to come in and nobody's coming in.
And it pisses me off.
But you also, on the other end of it, would do the same thing.
No, I get it. I understand. And especially when you're doing sheep and goats, I understand. And I'm telling you, if I had my brothers every time we ever showed calf, I would want to be the second or third one in. Because cattle, just like everybody else, lead better when they follow one. I want that judge to get a couple in there and then see, ooh, that one. Yeah, you. Come on. And then when you get pulled, like you do at Texas major shows, if you're the first one in line when you get pulled, then you get to go to the very front and set up, and you don't have to move for the rest of the time. You don't have to pull up when somebody gets pulled.
You may also, depending on how they walk them the next time, you may have put yourself in the front, and it always changes which way they're pulling.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being the one in the front. I don't want to be when you first go in there, but after pull, because those classes are long. They're 30, 45 minutes plus. You're the person, if you're the first one pulled in line, you don't have to move up every time somebody gets pulled out. You can set up and stay there and chill out. And it makes me much less.
We try to time it so we're not the first pull, but not the last. I overthink it all by a lot.
All right, I'm not saying.
Well, that's all good. I hope that some of you out there share some of these same stresses, and I'm sure there are people out there that none of this bothers you whatsoever, and I get it. And this was not meant to pick on show management, because there's not solutions for a lot
No,
of these
because
things.
all of them have
Other than
problems.
those
Every
of you
show.
that are
There's no
other-
show that does it perfect.
those-
And there's no show that doesn't have a problem.
Yeah. But those that are building new facilities can lessen the issues. Can we agree on that? If they put
Yeah,
some
and if
funds
y'all would like, I will consult for free. Just saying.
I love it. It is time for a question and answer sponsor.
Yes, we would like to thank Basic Animal Health for being the question and answer sponsor of the podcast this and every week until the end of the year. Basic Animal Health has created a revolutionary solution designed to keep your animals happy and healthy while traveling. It's called Trailer Ride. Trailer Ride is an all-natural complete health supplement designed to help animals combat the stresses of travel. The product also has many other uses, including minimizing gastric distress, calming the animal for a safe and comfortable ride. It also boosts the immune system, respiratory health, and contains essential electrolytes to keep your animal healthy, drinking, and hydrated while on the road. If you would like to try Trailer Ride or any of the other Basic Animal Health supplements, please go to basicanimalhealth.com. Thank you to the Leonard family, Leonard Truck and Trailer, and Basic Animal Health.
Thank you, Leonard family. The first question comes from Christy. I listen to your podcast every Friday on my way to work. This keeps me going from week to week and gives me a clear focus for our program on so many levels. We recently exhibited at a national show. Help me understand the reason why our exhibitor cards had exhibitor names printed on them. In addition to that, every kid's name was announced when they entered the ring. We have shown a lot of places and have never ran into this. Is this common practice? I would think that exhibitors' numbers would be sufficient identification tool of who is showing the animal. Your thoughts?
I cannot remember a show that had the exhibitor name printed on the front of an exhibitor card. I've seen it on the back a lot because they'll list Ryan Rash, heifer birthday, class, whatever. I've seen that, never on the front. As far as introducing the kids that are in the ring, yeah, I think that happens at almost every show. Everyone that I go to. And it's
Every
not just
major show.
Yeah, and it's not just major shows.
Not like
they do
jackpot shows.
Some of them, some county fairs.
Yeah.
But every major show that the classes are large enough that they can, and I don't think that's to let anybody know. I think that is, we want to say everybody's name that came to our show, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would have an issue with the exhibitor's name being on the front of the card. I would have an issue with that. I'm just saying. Not that it would matter to me, but I could see where perception, that's not a good look.
And I assume that's where she's going with this, is that we're
well, how could she not be going with? She's mad that they're getting their names called out over the intercom too. Yeah, that's where she's going.
So it's interesting to me, and I'm going to pick on the majors a little bit in Texas. That there are state fairs. There are state fairs in the Midwest that will make you put tape over a strapey tag so you don't know what state it came from, or a breeder tag, or cut them out. I believe at the Texas majors, most of them you have to cut the breeder tags out of sheep and goats.
And if you have one of those fancy harnesses that have your name on it, you have to put duct tape over it, or you can't wear anything, any type of that identify as a certain ranch brand, whatever. At least in the junior shows, you can't. So,
how about a Texas A&M belt buckle? Can we wear that?
I'm sure they'll probably let you slide with that. Yeah,
not a Tech belt buckle. Just an A&M buckle.
I care less.
Okay, so what's interesting to me is that they're trying to. What would be the reason for taking tags out, Ryan, or covering them up?
To try to keep politics out of it. To keep politics out.
Okay.
Keep a judge from identifying that animal is from so-and-so.
At that same show, once those animals are placed, they will read off before the division, they will read off the person's name, which is understood. I get it. A lot of shows do that. But if they're also a Texas bred goat and or lamb, they'll read off even the breeder of that animal prior to that judge sorting the division.
Dale's
So
just
isn't it
mad
a
because he
little bit
doesn't live in
hypocritical?
Texas and he doesn't get called.
I am not a Texas. Yes, exactly. It just shocks me. I understand.
It's already been placed.
But you still come back for division.
Okay, whatever. I have
So interesting to me that there's a lot of forethought put into let's not let anybody know what breeder this came from, but then all of a sudden we announce it before the shows. I mean, before division, before grand, before all of those things. So
just
it's
send
interesting
me
to
a
me, but
damn goat. I'll put it in my yard, and that way you can be a Texas breeder. Okay?
well, I sent one last week. You didn't get it?
No, not yet. But I hope it comes in the
Daddy
mail
James
soon.
has it out back, I believe.
Okay. Well, then
Daddy
now
James.
you have a satellite herd in Texas. You can be a Texas breeder, and all this is solved.
Oh, I've got it.
Mm-hmm. The one thing.
The next question.
Hold on.
Okay.
This is not, but I want to bring this up. It is almost 2025. This lady is talking about exhibitor numbers. Can I talk to the people that make exhibitor numbers for just a second? How is it 2025 almost, and we have yet to make an exhibitor number that fits in a cattle harness? The cattle harnesses are all the same.
Maybe we're not making it. Maybe we're not making a cattle harness to fit the exhibitor number.
Yeah, bullshit. No, whoever prints these,
I don't know.
This is stupid.
How is this relative to this question?
Because she talked about exhibitor numbers, and you will talk about shit that stresses me out. This is the whole. When I have to cut or fold or all these exhibitor numbers, it is 2025 people. You people that print the exhibitor numbers, go to Sullivan's, buy a harness, make it fit. The end. Bye. Thank you.
The next question comes from Jeremy. My wife and I just took over as 4-H club leaders in our county. We're trying to learn more and update our practices. A judge from our county fair told us we were about 15 years out of date at our last fair. I'm looking for a good resource that I can trust to learn how to show and fit a goat. We're a really small county, 1,500 people. And since our show is the end of the summer, none of our kids go on to show at the state fair, which takes place at the same time as our county fair. I'd love to find a good trusted YouTube channel that would start with the basics and work up. I love the podcast, and I've started listening to your back episodes. Keep up on the great work. Maybe one day we can get one of you to our Sherman County, Oregon show to judge our fair. I don't think there is a YouTube channel, Ryan.
There is not. And there's not a YouTube channel. I don't even know if there's DVDs or anything like this. So I was at the Utah State Fair.
Not current, anyway.
And I was at the Utah State Fair, and a very nice gentleman came up and told me that there needed to be an app for all of this. And I'm not saying that there's not, but there is. And he said that their stuff's 15 years out of date. I don't know if he's talking about their grooming practices or their show or what, but
grooming, but I don't know.
All I can tell you in terms of grooming and fitting and clipping and all this other stuff, there are camps that take adults as well as children. I think that a lot of this goes back to where you purchase your animals from, ask them for help, stuff like that. But there are camps, but I can't give you a website to go to that will give you a how-to on how to clip an animal. I cannot. Sorry.
No, I don't think, I just don't. And a lot of people want this. I get it, but it just doesn't exist. I can make it easier than even going to a camp. That would be the best to go to a fitting and clipping camp and presentation camp, whatever you want to call it. But there's so many online sales, and those that are doing a nice job in marketing these animals, you can definitely go online there and at least look at the videos and look at how it's being marketed and how it's being done right now. That doesn't mean it's going to teach you how to get there, but here's what it should look like. That at least maybe get you a start. So I get it, Jeremy, and maybe somebody out there can do these and be very, very popular. I know there were some done a long time ago, but I don't think there's anything current. The next one, Ryan, I cannot
use.
It would be
like VHS, not even DVD. I'm just saying.
Maybe. I'm avoiding the name. Sometimes you know how I put the name in or I'm not supposed to, and it's a problem. I'm not saying the name.
Mm-hmm.
Love the podcast and look forward to meeting both of you someday. There's been a great deal of discussion recently regarding overaging cattle.
Oh shit!
Recently, it started with the Shorthorn board putting out a statement and was followed up by a judge describing a female as appearing to be overage at the American Royal. What are your thoughts on how to get this issue back in check? Those of us in the purebred cattle industry have evolved into playing the game, moving birth dates just to survive, as if you are the only one that does not, you have no chance.
Okay, Dale. You
no, this says Ryan. This says Ryan.
Oh, it says Ryan. Oh, good, even better.
Yeah,
okay, so first off, we have dedicated 2 podcasts to this, and since I did not know that this question was going to come up, but I knew after what happened at the American Royal that at some point it would come up either, and I had to pull these things because people were like, I was like, we've done 2 podcasts about it. So I want you to know that number 94, age discrimination, and number 128, age discrimination evolution. Both of those are devoted to this subject in its entirety. Okay.
What numbers are they again?
94 and 128.
Excellent.
94.
Excellent. I did not have the numbers when they were texting me.
94 and 128. I went back, got them after all this. So here's my thing. And this is probably going to be the longest question to answer in the history of the world. Do I appreciate the fact that the Shorthorn Association put out a statement saying that that this is a problem, this is an issue? And what I appreciate more than anything else in that statement is they said that they are looking for other technologies and advancements on getting this under control. Great. When that technology is available, I hope the American Shorthorn Association and every other, regardless of species, uses it. And I don't understand how we don't have something that can determine the animal's age within a relative time frame. I mean, maybe not exact, but pretty close. The thing that I don't appreciate that the American Shorthorn Association did is they tried to put this on the judge. It's not the judge's place. And yes, I'm very well aware that a judge who I know called an animal out over age 4 times and used that animal to win a division. And it was all over social media and all this other stuff. And some people said it was great. Some people said that he's rewarding cheating, whatever. This is why it's not the judge's place. Because regardless, if we think the animal is overaged or too mature or all these things, you can't prove it because there's not a test. There's not, as the American Shorthorn Association said, there is not a technological advancement yet that gets you there. So you can't prove it. The other part is, I would say at least 70% of these animals are purchased. They're not bred and owned. So when you buy that animal, you're taking that breeder, that seller, that broker, whatever, that put papers on that animal or tells you what age it is if it's a market animal at face value. And
with that, real quick, when they go way out, you know, as a buyer, it's probably not
everybody.
When they go extreme.
Not everybody does.
Not everybody. But many people that are going to be showing at the upper end probably are aware.
The
Nothing
upper
they're
end
do
is the
about
small part, Dale, not the big part. Okay, and I don't think they're the ones buying the ones that are too big and too old. Finally, there is no recourse for someone who, especially in the breeding thing, there is no recourse for an exhibitor or a family that buys this animal and I think mine is overaged, or the judge told me mine is overaged. I need to fix this. They can't. They cannot call the American Shorthorn Association and say, I think that my animal is overaged and I want to change its birth date.
They can call them. It just isn't going nothing. I do not believe there's anything they can do, but they can call them.
There's no recourse.
And they can choose. It. They can choose to not buy from that breeder next year.
I'm talking about the animal that we're showing right now, Dale.
Yeah. No, not much you're going to do.
And I go back to the fact there have been times as a judge that I think one's been overaged. I'm not going to say that there hasn't. And I also think if I call this kid out on this and I am wrong, what have I done? Just like people, some people are early maturing, some people are 6'9", some people are 3'10", so all this stuff. There is variance in cattle. I'm not saying that this is not a problem. I agree it's a problem. I think by and large, people fudge on their birth dates on show stock overwhelmingly. You can't lay it on the judge. You cannot. And it's bullshit. That because, and I talked about this on both those podcasts. I've seen before this incident happened at the American Royal. I've seen this 1,000 times on why doesn't the judge put this one down because it's obviously overaged or all this other stuff. It's not the judge's place. The judge is to judge those animals out there. If you want to say that one is too big and too mature for you and beat it because of that reason, get with it. That's your opinion. Go for it. But you don't have a crystal ball, and you can't say without a shadow of a doubt, with 100% authority and accuracy, what any animal in that ring's actual birth date is. You cannot. So
Agreed. This is gonna stimulate a lot more questions. You're aware.
I don't care. I said what I said.
No, it's good. I think it's good, and I'm going to refer listeners back to those 2 episodes that Ryan had mentioned. And I did see on social media that the example that Matt Clay's put forth at the NSR about let's take our January born gilts, weigh them, and separate them into classes so they're more by size, maybe being an advantage. And Ryan will always tell you, unless you're just going to weigh them, it isn't changing, period. And nobody's ever just going to weigh them and not look at age. So it's a complex issue. I'm sure we will get more questions. I'm sure we will address it more, but there are 2 episodes that you can refer back to. But it is a hot topic right now. And Ryan, I appreciate you giving your insight. With that said, thank you very much. Let's everybody get out and vote. This is the last episode that drops prior to the election, and we hope November 5th all goes well. We will visit with you post-election. Until then, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?